There's a table by the window at a restaurant you would recognize. 4 women, a long lunch, the kind that runs past 2 o'clock because nobody is in a hurry to get back to anything. One of them is doing most of the talking. Her bag sits on the chair beside her, turned just slightly so the hardware catches the light. She mentions the renovation, the second bathroom they're adding, the trip in the fall. She mentions the school the kids got into, the way you mention something you want repeated later. Across from her is a woman who says almost nothing about money at all. Plain sweater, no logo on anything she's wearing. She drove there in a car that's maybe 8 years old, and she parked it herself in the regular lot, like someone who genuinely doesn't think about who's watching her park. Now I want you to do something you already do without noticing. I want you to guess. Out of those 4 women, point to the one with the most money. You picked the one talking. Almost everyone does. You picked wrong. And the gap is not close. I'm going to be honest with you up front, because this is exactly the kind of claim that falls apart when somebody pushes on it. Not every wealthy woman is quiet. Some of the loudest spenders alive are genuinely rich, and some of the plainest people you'll ever meet are one bad month from a crisis. So, I'm not telling you that quiet means rich and loud means broke. That's a bumper sticker, and a bumper sticker is the kind of thing that quietly costs you money. What I'm telling you is more specific, and it holds up. When you look at the women who are actually at the top, not the ones performing the top, the ones who hold it, they tend to disappear into the most ordinary version of themselves you can imagine. And there's a reason for it that has nothing to do with taste, and everything to do with how status actually works. The idea I want you to carry through this whole video is this: loud luxury is a signal, and a signal is something you send when you still need an answer. The woman with the bag turned toward the light is sending. She's sending to the other 3 women at that table, and the research on this is unusually clean about who the audience really is. It's almost never men, and it's almost never the general public. It's other women in a specific kind of contest. The woman in the plain sweater stopped sending a long time ago because the question that signal was supposed to answer already got answered. She's not above it, she's just past it. And once you see that, the parking lot changes. The lunch changes. Your own closet changes, a little, which is the part nobody warns you about. By the end of this, you're going to understand 3 things. You're going to understand what the quiet woman actually owns that the loud one doesn't, and it isn't the obvious stuff. You're going to understand why the women at the very, very top, the ones whose names you'd know, look so relentlessly plain that you'd walk right past them in a grocery store. And you're going to understand the one thing her silence is quietly buying her every single year, that the other woman's noise is quietly spending. But I have to deal with something first, because if I don't, you'll spend this whole video thinking it. There's a fact about the richest women in the world that almost breaks this entire story. Most of them didn't earn it. And if I'm going to ask you to learn anything from how they live, I owe you an honest answer to the obvious objection. Maybe they only look ordinary because they never had to prove anything in the first place. That objection is good. It's so good that I'm going to spend real time on it. And then I'm going to show you why the lesson survives it anyway, and why it matters more for you, the person who is still building, than it ever did for them. So let's start where the money actually hides. Not in the bag, not in the car. In the one number none of those 4 women said out loud. The number none of them said out loud is the only number that decides who's actually rich. And the reason you missed it is simple. Nobody ever taught us to look at it. We were taught to read income. The renovation, the trip, the school the kids got into, that's income talking. And income is a story you can tell at a table. But income isn't wealth. Wealth is the number you can't perform. What she owns, minus what she owes, and how much of it she could actually put her hands on by Friday if her whole life went sideways. That last part is where the floor gives way. You can have the lovely house and the new car in the driveway, and a closet that photographs beautifully, and still be living one thin layer above zero where every nice thing in the picture is fed by a payment due next month, and the month after with no end. The picture is real. The ownership isn't. She doesn't own that life. She's renting it, and her landlord is her own future paycheck. The woman in the plain sweater flipped that on purpose. Almost everything in her life that looks unremarkable is paid for and quietly hers. The car is 8 years old because 8-year-old cars that are fully owned are one of the most peaceful things money can buy. And the money that isn't going to payments and appearances is going somewhere you'll never see across a restaurant, which is exactly why you guessed wrong. You were grading a test she stopped taking years ago. So why does the loud woman keep taking it? And before you judge her, I want you to sit with the fact that almost all of us are taking it too, in our own version. I did, for years. So let's be fair to her, because the pressure she's under is real, and it was built on purpose. There's a whole shelf of research asking one question about luxury spending. Who is the audience? When a woman carries the bag with the hardware turned toward the light, who is she actually talking to? And the answer is steadier than the researchers expected. It's not men. It's almost never the general public. It's other women inside a specific kind of contest for position and belonging in a group where everyone is quietly ranking everyone else. That bag at the lunch table wasn't aimed at a husband or a stranger. It was aimed at the other 3 chairs. Now, the finding underneath that is the one I really want you to keep, because it's the rule we were never handed. When researchers looked at how wealthy people actually buy luxury, they found a split. People who still feel a strong need to prove their status, no matter how much money they truly have, reach for the loud, obviously branded version. The logo is the entire point. But people whose status feels settled, who aren't worried about their place, drift toward the quiet version, the one with no logo, the one only another insider would even notice. Same money, opposite behavior. The thing that separates them isn't the bank balance. It's whether the question is still open. That's the mechanism, and it's the missing variable in almost every purchase you've ever made. Not can I afford this, but who am I still trying to answer? Loud luxury is a signal, and a signal is something you send when you haven't gotten your answer yet. The settled woman went quiet because her answer already came in. She's not better than the loud woman. She's just done. Now I have to keep a promise I made you, because if I dodge it, you shouldn't believe a word of the rest. The part that almost wrecks this whole argument is this. If you line up the actual richest women on earth, the real list, not the influencers, almost none of them earned it. In the most recent ranking of the 10 wealthiest women in the world, 9 of the 10 inherited their fortunes. 9 out of 10. The richest woman alive is the daughter of the man who founded Walmart, worth somewhere past $130 billion, a number too big to feel. For years, people have said she drove around in an old Ford pickup, and I'll be honest, that detail gets repeated so much it's halfway to legend now, so hold it loosely. But the bigger pattern isn't legend. The women at the very top look ordinary, and most of them were handed the top. So you should be thinking the obvious thing right now, and you'd be right to. Of course they look ordinary. They never had to prove anything to anyone. They were born already holding the exact position the loud woman is exhausting herself to signal. Discretion is easy when your last name is the answer. Maybe the richest women looking ordinary is just a polite way of saying, old money never had to try. That objection is good. It's so good that it's actually the key, so stay with me one more minute. Look at what it proves. These women are quiet because their status is secure, and inheritance is simply the most extreme, most permanent form of secure status there is. You can't lose a last name, so the heiress isn't the exception to the rule. She's the rule turned all the way up. Security is what removes the need to signal. She just got her security the easy way. Which means the real question, your question, the one for people still building this thing by hand, was never how do I get born into Walmart? It's where does that same security come from when no one hands it to me? And the quiet, almost annoying answer is that you build the security itself, long before you can afford to relax about it. The few self-made women at the very top did exactly that. The one self-made woman in that top 10 runs a global shipping company and is so private most people have never heard her name. The woman who runs one of the largest investment firms on the planet is worth tens of billions and stays nearly invisible in public. None of them perform wealth. They built the secure version the only way there is, by owning far more than they showed for a long time on purpose. The lesson survives the objection. What buys silence is security, and the heiress just inherited hers. Let me put a real number on the thing you'd actually be trading, because build security means nothing until you can see its price. Take the loud woman's year, just the visible part. The bag, refreshed often enough to stay current. The car, leased, so it's forever new and forever a payment. The clothes that have to keep pace with the group. The dinners where ordering the cheaper thing would say something she can't afford to have said. Put a deliberately gentle number on it. $500 a month on spending that exists mainly to be seen. $6,000 a year performing. Now for the math the lunch table never does. That same $500 a month, redirected and invested at roughly 8% a year, which is never guaranteed, could grow to around $475,000 over about 25 years. Close to $500,000. That's the real price tag on the costume, not $6,000 a year. Almost $500,000 of her own future, handed back one bag, one lease, one rounded-up dinner at a time to keep answering a question at a table that will never stay answered. The missing variable was never the cost of the bag. It was the cost of the future the bag was quietly standing in for. And before you swing too hard the other way, let me say the fair thing, because I'm not here to shame anyone into a beige life. Liking beautiful things is not a flaw. Wanting a good bag, a car that feels like something, a home that feels like yours, none of that is wrong. And any channel that tells you joy is the problem is just selling you guilt with better lighting. So the line is clean. Luxury after security is taste. Luxury before security is theater. The settled woman gets to enjoy the beautiful thing precisely because she already won the game underneath it. For her, it's just pleasure, not proof. The loud woman is buying the same object to do a job, to hold her place in line. One of them is spending money. The other is spending money to manage a feeling, and the feeling always comes back, which is the part that keeps the spending going forever. So here's a gut check you can run on yourself tonight, no judgment attached. If a purchase would lose most of its appeal the second you knew not one person would ever see it, you weren't buying the thing. You were buying the audience. And the audience is the most expensive thing a person can own, because the bill comes again every single month for the rest of your life. So, what does the quiet woman actually get in return for looking like nobody? This is the part I most want you to carry out of here, because it's the part that changed how I spend. She gets the power to say no. No to the job that pays beautifully and costs her everything. No to the move she doesn't want. No to staying somewhere that's slowly hurting her because leaving is too expensive. The plain sweater and the paid-off car and the invisible savings aren't deprivation. They're a quiet stockpile of the only thing real money is for, the freedom to make choices that have nothing to do with money. The loud woman, surrounded by lovely things, often can't say no to anything, because every payment in that gorgeous picture is a small contract that requires her to keep earning at exactly this level, forever. She looks free and lives captured. The quiet one looks captured and lives free. You met both of them at that table. You bet on the wrong one, not because you're shallow, but because you were trained your whole life to read the signal and never once shown the balance sheet. So tonight, look at your own life the way you looked at that table. Find the one thing you own or are still paying for that you'd quietly stop wanting if you knew nobody would ever see it. Don't cancel anything yet. Just find it and let it be honest with you about who you've been answering. Because there's one more thing about the woman in the plain sweater, a detail I left out on purpose. It has nothing to do with money, and it's the reason she was ever able to go quiet in the first place. The quiet woman wasn't born calmer than the rest of that table. She just answered one question years before they did. And that's the detail I held back, the reason she could ever go quiet at all. The question is simple, and almost nobody asks it on purpose. How much is actually enough? Enough house, enough car, enough life. She picked her own numbers. And the moment you pick your own number, the table loses its hold on you, because you're no longer running a race where the finish line moves every time the group meets for lunch. This part sounds soft and isn't. Defining enough is not a vision board exercise. It's the only thing that ever switches the signal off, and the reason is mechanical. The signal, the bag, the lease, the renovation is an answer to am I keeping up? But keeping up has no ceiling, because the group sets it and the group raises it every year. You can't win a contest other people are scoring. You can only quit it. And the only way to quit is to take the scorekeeping back and do it yourself. Enough isn't a budget. It's you firing the judges. Watch what happens when you skip that step, because this is the trap that catches good earners specifically. You get a raise. You never defined enough, So there's no ceiling on the new money, and money with no ceiling doesn't get saved, it gets absorbed. The house gets a little bigger, the car a little newer, the standard a little higher, and within a year the raise is gone, turned into a slightly more expensive version of the same performance. You earned more and got less free. Not because you're weak, because a raise with no defined enough has nowhere to go but into the costume. Go back to that restaurant one last time. You pointed at the woman doing the talking. Look again. She wasn't winning the conversation. She was still inside it, still answering, still paying a monthly bill on a question that resets every single time the group gets together. The woman in the plain sweater wasn't quiet because she had less to say. She'd walked out of the contest years ago, with her money and her future intact, and nobody at the table even noticed she was gone. Loud luxury is a signal. A signal is something you send when you still need an answer. She stopped sending hers the day she gave herself one. So, what do you actually do with this? Two small things. First, that purchase you found earlier, the one that would lose its shine the second you knew no one would ever see it. Don't burn it down. Just sit with what it was really answering and to whom. Naming the audience is most of the cure, because it's hard to keep paying for something once you've said out loud who you were paying. Second, this week, write your enough down. One plain sentence each for the home, the car, and the monthly life that would genuinely be plenty, not impressive, just plenty. Keep it somewhere you'll see it. Because if you don't put a ceiling on enough, your next raise will set one for you, and it always sets it a little higher than wherever you just landed. You were never handed this rulebook. That's not a flaw in you. It's how the game is built, and the people who look the part are usually the ones losing it most expensively. But you can see it now. You can read the balance sheet instead of the signal. And the next time your eye jumps to the loudest, shiniest person in the room, you'll know to look past her, because the richest woman there is almost never the one performing it. She's the one who already left the contest, free in a way the room can't see and can't sell back to her. That's the whole secret, sitting in plain sight. The women who look the most ordinary aren't hiding their wealth. They just stopped advertising a question they'd already answered. Pick your number, walk out of the contest, and let the table keep talking without you.